Nocticula, the Redeemer Queen, is one of the more unique deities within Golarion. While her status as an ascended demon lord turned deity isn't entirely unique, she has easily undergone the most dramatic character turn amongst the gods. How did a god go from being the patron of assassins and lust to a champion of art and redemption? Just going to hop out of character for a moment. This will refer to character arcs and plot events from the adventure paths and video games shown on screen now. So if you are worried about plot spoilers relating to these stories, you may want to add this video to the watch later pile. In her original demonic incarnation, Nocticula appeared as a scantily clad succubus, with dark hair that was worn in exotic styles and extravagant headdresses. She tended to appear as the female that her victims found most appealing, with her facial features and bodily assets shifting at will. Her fingers typically ended in sharp talons, while her feet ended in hooves made of stone that left behind molten iron in her hoofsteps. Bat-like wings sprouted from her back that were covered with magical runes, and she had a tail with 3 stingers that showed her true form as a demon lord. As the Redeemer Queen, Nocticula's form has shifted to reflect her new godly appearance. Her dark hair has shifted to a gentle blue hue, and the angry snarl that was commonly seen on her face has been replaced with a gentle and approachable expression. Her new clothing is more complex in design and highlights, and less revealing than her previous sultry attire. Nocticula's original symbol, like that of any demon lord, was a dark rune. Nocticula's in particular was that of a forked rune with sharp edges and sweeping lines. As a newly formed deity, her symbol takes the form of blue hair and lips, with a crown with 7 spikes erupting from the middle. To be honest, I find the new symbol a little strange. In the beginning, Nocticula was the first of the demons that would become known as the Succubus. Before long, she would become the demon lord of the Midnight Isles, patron of assassins, and ruler of all succubi. She fully embraced her evil nature and was content to prey upon weaker-minded mortals, and even fellow demons, seeking to spread her evil influence as far as she could. Befitting her role as patron to traitors, assassins, and seducers, she perfected the art of being both a vicious sadist and a seductive temptress. She proved to be very popular amongst the drow of Golarion and was adopted as the patron of House Misraria, and is a common name in places such as Katapesh, Nex, Geb, and portions of the River Kingdoms. Surprisingly, she was also venerated among the Lamros, a group of creatures cursed by Pharasma who loathe all of the gods. The demon lord Nahindri was the first of Nocticula's fellow demon lords to attempt to attack her, with Nahindri attempting to enslave her and bind her to his will. She retaliated and was able to kill Nahindri. His body would then go on to become the first landmass in the Midnight Isles, the realm that Nocticula rules over. This event opened her eyes to the fact that not only was she strong enough to overcome many of her demonic rivals, but that she alone had a unique effect on a demon lord's death. When your typical demon lord dies, their soul fragments, and a portion of it is embedded into the walls of the Rift of Repose, a rift inside the abyss. These walls are embedded with the fossilized remains of all the demon lords who have ever been slain, their power and souls lying dormant, a grim statue being all that remains. That is, unless you are slain by Nocticula. When she kills a demon lord, she would claim part of their essence, using them to expand her realm, the Midnight Isles. There, they were transformed into new islands, adding to the many that make up this realm, with their terrain influenced by the soul and personalities of the dead. Whether these serve as final tributes or grim trophies is a matter of interpretation, but each conquest is ruled over by a powerful succubus or incubus in service to the ladies in shadow. Eventually, Nocticula had expanded her influence far enough to come into conflict with Varavaxis, the patron of shadow demons. The pair met in combat, and Nocticula emerged victorious over Varavaxis, gaining patronage over the shadow demons that he previously ruled over. In the distant past, in the year -6150 AR, Nocticula would make a deal with the second Rune Lord of Wrath, the Rune Lord Angothane. She would aid him in becoming the second Rune Lord of Wrath, and in turn, he would be bound to a Mind-Bend figurine. With this figurine, Nocticula would gain a powerful mortal tool. She would go on to use this Mind-Bend figurine to force Angothane to assassinate his rival, Rune Lord Ziri, who was a servant of the demon lord Colifer. With Ziri's murder, Colifer would be distracted long enough for Nocticula herself to launch an attack on the demon lord, ending the life of one of her own rivals. At the same time, the death of a Rune Lord by a fellow Rune Lord would permanently shatter the Rune Lords, and the ruling body of Thassalon would never be the same again. In one fell swoop, she had taken out a fellow demon lord and a powerful civilization on the material plane. Throughout the eons, Nocticula has murdered dozens of rivals, with at least 30 notable additions to her Midnight Isles. Most recently, Nocticula has come into conflict with Baphomet and Discari, the demon lords most responsible for the Worldwound incident. After the Worldwound opened, the pair's forces invaded the Midnight Isles and began harvesting Nihidrian crystals, which greatly empowered those who drank a liquid concoction made from them. Nocticula, however, refused Baphomet's request to join the demon lords in attacking the material plane. She viewed it as a risky invasion that would do nothing but needlessly anger the good-aligned Denzians of the material plane. When she refused, Baphomet had his forces sneak into the Midnight Isles and began mining in secret. However, Nocticula was fully aware of his actions. She feigned ignorance and allowed him to begin mining operations, but in retaliation, she began aiding the Crusaders who were attempting to stop Discari and his forces. By doing so, she was effectively playing both sides of this conflict, where she would receive support from other demon lords who were against Baphomet for invading her land, while also gaining valuable goodwill from the good-aligned gods of the crusade that she was now aiding. As well, she would gain access to the minerals that they had begun mining. Eventually, these heroes would make their way into the Midnight Isles, and with Nocticula's manipulations, they were able to end Baphomet's plans for the Midnight Isles. In a fit of rage, Baphomet forced his way into the Midnight Isles, ready to slaughter this adventuring group. However, as soon as he set foot on the Midnight Isles, Nocticula struck down the mighty demon lord. In that moment, Baphomet threw his soul through the portal he had forced open, returning his body to his own realm where he was able to resurrect himself. However, he now locked himself within his own fortress, too scared to venture outside for fear of Nocticula tracking him down and finishing the job permanently. In the years after the events of the Worldwound, rumors began to spread that Nocticula had abandoned the Midnight Isles. While her clerics continued to receive spells and powers from her, a cult of heretics had sprung up around her. This group of heretics was known as the Cult of the Redeemer Queen, and they had the audacity to claim that Nocticula was on the cusp of fully abandoning her demonic origins and ascending as a true deity. She would no longer be known as the Demon Lord of Assassins, Darkness, and Lust, but would be now known as the Redeemer Queen, patron saint of Artist, Midnight, and Outcast. Return of the Rune Lord, spoilers ahead. During the return of the Rune Lords, a group of heroes would find themselves traveling through time, and would find themselves aiding the Rune Lord Agathane. Upon doing so, Nocticula herself would thank the heroes for their aid and see fragments of the future in their mind, where Nocticula had embraced Godhood. This event started a self-fulfilling prophecy where Nocticula saw her own future as a god, and was inspired for the first time to turn away from her demonic origins and become that god. To this day, Nocticula has a strained relationship with many of the other demon lords. Due to her skills as an assassin, many demon lords attempt to keep her at arm's length and watch her with a critical eye. But her unearthly beauty inspires such lust and obsession that many of the demon lords are fooled into letting their guard down around her. With her new powers as a full deity, she is even more of a threat than she used to be. The only demon lord she was on good terms with was her brother, Sako Benoth. At one time, they had a friendly and disturbingly intimate relationship. However, Sako Benoth eventually grew jealous of his sister's power and attempted to assassinate her, but she easily overpowered him and left his body broken on the steps into his own personal realm. Now, she merely pretends he does not exist, which proves to infuriate him even further, but he is also tempered by the fear that she will attack him one day, but will finish the job this time. Many believe that Lamashtu and Nocticula were allies at one time, but there is little actual evidence of this. Nocticula never went up against the demon lords that most threatened Lamashtu, and now Lamashtu's own cult has become increasingly hostile toward the Redeemer Queen's interests. It's reported that Lamashtu feels threatened by her and her rapid rise in power. Baphomet is an obvious enemy to Nocticula, still angry and threatened by the Midnight Assassin and how easily she dispatched him. Nocticula still keeps in contact with her old ally Chimera, the nescient demon lord that ruled over the Midnight Isles and Nocticula's steed as her right-hand demon for eons. She is now the most powerful of the succubi and incubi that were left behind on the Midnight Isles, and she stands to step into the demon lord role that Nocticula has vacated. Chimera holds no ill will toward her former master and lover, but it is unclear if she still stands as an ally to Nocticula. As we've mentioned, as a demon lord, Nocticula has an abysmal realm all her own that goes by the name of the Midnight Isles. Her realm takes the form of an island chain formed from the bodies of the past demon lords she's assassinated, with each landmass having different terrain that relates to the personality of that slain lord. I'm not going to go too deep into the Midnight Isles in this video because I believe the Isles deserve their own dedicated video in the future. The largest island is Alinthia, which is where you can find her capital city of Elishnera, and what was Nocticula's palace, the House of Silken Shadows. Elishnera is the largest metropolis within the Abyss, with this city being larger than any that can be found on the material plane and described as being beautiful beyond comprehension. To put it in perspective, the House of Silken Shadows alone is larger than the entire city of Absalom. Nocticula was a shrewd and clever demon lord, and had arranged for trade to lift Elishnera into a popular trading hub, with Thana demons patrolling its many canals, keeping the peace in exchange for souls. We will cover the capital city and some of its denizens in greater details in the Midnight Isle videos. As a goddess, Nocticula had left the Midnight Isles in Chimera's claws and moved her personal realm to the border of the Maelstrom and Elysium, known as the Midnight's Palette. At the moment, the islands that have appeared here are based on the artistic works of her 24 most faithful, and in fitting as a refuge for exiled creators, are expected to expand with creative works as her following grows. As a newly formed goddess, we currently don't know what forms the servants of Nocticula will take, but we can be sure that they will be as deadly as they are beautiful. Nocticula's new edicts are especially noble given her past. You must create art that is true to yourself. You must create from the heart and make art that is true to who you are as a person. You cannot create art with a lie. It's only by being able to face who you are as a person that we are able to make things others wish to see. You must protect marginalized artists. You must be a force of good for other artists, and you must look to protect the insignificant groups who wish to create within the world. You must punish those who take advantage of offered trust and shelter. Shelter and trust are rarely freely given, and when they are, you should not seek to use others' kindness to your own advantage. If you do, one of Nocticula's faithful will seek you out. Nocticula's anathemas are mostly obvious, with a bit of a strange one thrown in at the end. You cannot deny shelter to the desperate. As a follower of the Redeemer Queen, you must be willing to help those who need shelter and aid. If they take advantage of that, you may take your retribution, but you cannot turn them away without cause. You cannot destroy harmless art that you dislike. This one is interesting to me, simply because it means that you can destroy art that causes harm. I wonder if that means art that reveals secrets, or if it's harmful in some other way I'm just not thinking of. You cannot finish a work of art during the daylight hours. As a follower of Nocticula, the midnight hours are the true creative hours, and you must aim to finish all of your works of art during the night. We don't truly have enough information on Nocticula to know how she will act as a goddess moving forward, but I will imagine that she will pop up in adventures moving forward. As a goddess, Nocticula has dropped her evil past and moved to a chaotic neutral alignment, and seems to be focusing on redeeming herself for her past actions. From the Gods and Magic book, we do have a small blurb that I think gives a good idea of how she sees the world as a goddess. Nocticula teaches that the most important art is that which challenges you or your thinking. The art that compels you to look at the world in a different way, or pushes you out of your comfort zone and forces you into someone else's shoes. It is only through exercises like this that art is able to change the world and encourage growth. Usually, I try to fill out a format guide with the following bits of information for my deity videos. But with Nocticula only being a deity for a few short years and only receiving a single page of information in the Gods and Magic sourcebook, the truth is we don't have enough knowledge to fill them in. So instead, I'm going to end this video with my own take on a church for Nocticula and with a discussion in the comments. Nocticula's church often takes one of two forms. You can commonly find her worship practiced within art museums, where art is viewed and lauded by her disciples, or within art studios, where her followers create and collaborate with each other to create bigger and better works of art. As the goddess of midnight, her studios are gently lit with dozens of candles, and it is not uncommon to hear a bard plucking at their lute as they compose a masterpiece. With what you now know of Nocticula's past, do you think you could answer any of these items? Did I miss any that are in small blurbs in other Pathfinder 2nd edition books? If so, please drop me a line, let me know where to look, and I may add a part 2 to this video. Before we fully end this video, I want to have a little bit of a meta discussion on Nocticula herself. If you look at Nocticula's first appearance back in 2009, she is dressed very risque, with most of her skin revealed and in a provocative pose. She remained similarly attired and positioned in many of her appearances, and it wasn't until the launch of 2E that she began to shift in appearance and role. Paizo has begun pushing to be more inclusive, with changes to Nocticula's appearance being one such change. She is now dressed more modestly, with a lengthy flowing cloak instead of her more revealing attire. Her barbed tails have slimmed down and lost their thorns, but are now to have sharp metal tips at their ends. Sexuality in itself is not a bad thing. There is a certain element to it that has always plagued entertainment of any forms, however. Paizo appears to be pushing back against this and is creating more family-friendly terms and characters than they used to. And personally, I support this. I have begun introducing my daughter to Pathfinder, and she is 7 years old. During the creation of this video, when I was working with various arts of Nocticula, I almost felt like I needed to hide my computer screen from her so she didn't see the scantily clad demon I was working with. I believe it's a healthy change from Paizo, and I appreciate the fact that it was not a one-day change, but done gradually and organically over time. I'm excited to see how the world of Golarion adapts moving forward into the future. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you pop in for my next lecture. Before we head out today, I want to take a moment and thank my Discord and Patreon supporters. Big thank you to Drake, Havoc, and I Share Comics for supporting me on Patreon, and Kaz for supporting me over on YouTube. I also want to say thank you to Mike, my editor, who is the main reason my videos have much less stuttering and tongue-tying in them than they used to. If you'd like to see your name added to this list in the future, you can check out the links in the description of this video for ways to support me. Work is entering its slow days before the holidays, so I'm having much more time to write my scripts, and you can expect a few videos on the Impossible Lands in the near future. I've had an extra long break, and now I'm back with a vengeance, so I will see you soon as we venture into the Mana Wastes.